I had interviewed April. The two of you had met up beforehand, and she pleaded for you not to put your hands on.
Both on and off camera, yeah.
Right, exactly. Didn't quite work out that way. Obviously, we only got to see a very small piece of what happened. What was the bigger picture of that situation?
The bigger picture of that situation for me was Amanda had been in the picture at that point for 2 years. I'd laid eyes on her one time. And the only reason I ever knew of her existence at all was because my son came home and said, Daddy has a girlfriend and her name is Manu. And I was like, what the fuck kind of name is Manu? Clearly he didn't get the name right. And I said, oh, well, how do you feel about that? And he said, I don't like it. And I said, well, why? And he said, because she calls Dad babe and Daddy calls her babe. And I said, and how do you feel about that? And he said, oh, I don't like it. And I said, well, is she nice to you? And he said, yes. I asked the necessary questions. Is she bathing you? Is she seeing your privates when you go to the bathroom? Is she cooking your dinner? Is she sleeping in the same bed with you? Does she spank you? The answer was no. She comes over for a little bit and then she leaves, and my daddy gives me a bath, and my daddy takes me to the bathroom, and my daddy made my dinner, and he gives me macaroni and cheese all the time and lets me have junk. And so I was like, okay, so, you know, what we teach him is to treat others how you want to be treated. So I was like, well, you know, what do Mommy and Michi and Pappy, it's my mom and dad, teach you? And he said, to be nice to people, because I want people to be nice to me. And I said, all right. So I text Drew, and this was right before Cameron's 4th birthday party. And I text Drew and I said, you know, Cam says you have a girlfriend named Manu, and he's adamant that she and this kid named Jacob come to his birthday party. And I have no problem with that, but don't spring the little bitch on me at the birthday party. I should meet her beforehand. And he ignored my text message. Cut to a couple months later, you know, Cameron had told us where he wanted his party. I went, left a deposit, left my debit card. Drew and the girlfriend, Amanda, who I'm not knowing her name, I just know her as Manu at this point, they go switch the party a week before party time. And I lose my deposit. And so I can't afford to just drop money everywhere.
Right.
You know, we had a plan that we made with our son, and now you and homegirl here decide to flip the script on me a week before, but then you're demanding that I cough up more dough. I can't do it. And he was like, well, my girl's gonna pay for your half, and then you can just pay her back. And I texted him back and I said, you tell that bitch to eat that $150. Shove it up her fucking ass. If you wanna play house, tell that hoe tuition is due. He has a balance of X amount of dollars at the pediatrician that is out of our network through insurance. I went down the list and I was like, if this is how we're gonna do things and you wanna play house, then that bitch really needs to know what it feels like to be a mother. Otherwise, don't ever throw your girlfriend in my face in that way. Like, you having a girlfriend doesn't mean anything to me, but when you attach that to my son, then I have an issue, you know? Yeah. So, cut to the birthday party, I walk in and she looks at me. You know, Drew was so nervous that his hands were shaking. He mispronounced my name. He called me Monet. And I'm like, what? Who the fuck is Monet? So I actually thought he was calling her Monet. So I'm thinking, oh, Cameron said Manu, Monet, yeah. Close enough. So I speak no words, you know. I walk away because why the fuck is she even here? I don't care if she paid for the whole party. Like, she shouldn't be here. So we had no interaction. So for me, you know, cut to here's the show, and they're like, oh, what do you feel about Amanda? And I'm like, who's Amanda? And they're like, what? Fizz's girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, I never knew her name. I didn't know her name until 5 minutes before I walked onto set. So I was like, I mean, I don't dislike her at all, but from what I've heard, I don't think she's ready to be a mom. So for me, the bigger picture is when you, male or female, are dating someone who has a child, you, especially if you're planning long term, you're choosing to be a secondary parent to this child in the absence of the biological parent. Right. That's what love is. So, and I have the perfect example of that. My stepdad has raised me since I was 6 weeks old. You know, that's my dad. And he didn't raise me or love me any differently than my brother and sister that he had with my mom.
Right.
So that's my example. So when I don't see someone, and maybe that's a really high standard, but I don't know different. So when I see someone who doesn't even come close, my thing was just stay away from Cameron. Like, you're going in and out with Drew, and ultimately that does affect my son.
Sure.
Because you're sitting in my face telling me you're hands-on and I'm the one that's there every day and da-da-da. Well, you can't possibly be there every day if every other week you're broken up. So just stay away until you figure out what you're doing with his dad. It's not that hard, and you'd be able to have more time with Dad if Dad answered more of my phone calls. And if Dad responded to more of my text messages, then you guys might be able to have one-on-one time and get back to the basics. For me, my only message to Amanda was, you'd be a fool to make an enemy out of me because you're expendable and I am not.
You're going to be around regardless.
Whether he likes it or not.
Yeah.
You can be cut in a heartbeat, and in walks the next bitch. So you would probably do yourself a lot of good to make an ally out of me. I can help you, actually, because I know Drew in ways that you'll never know Drew until it goes bad. And what happened? It went bad, and then she saw the side that I was talking about. So
what was really the final straw for that led to the slap and grab?
First, I want to say, in all sincerity, that I shouldn't have done that. I wasn't raised like that. Now, I do have a temper, and I am in therapy for that temper.
Okay.
And I will never stop going to therapy. And I did apologize to her for that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, at the reunion.
Oh, at the reunion.
And it didn't make
didn't make the cut.
the cut. But I did apologize to her for that.
How did she take the apology?
She accepted it. What else can you do? At this point, she'll probably take anything I give because, she's out of the picture now. So whatever I say and do, she'd probably abide by to get her spot back. But the tipping point for me was just being badgered all season. A lot of the things that Drew was saying were not true. As my family started to watch the show, they stopped watching because they were like, the way that he portrays you is as if you come from nothing, as if you're ratchet. Yes, you've had your ups, your downs, and your life hasn't been perfect, and we go through our fair share of bullshit as parent-child, and it will always be that way no matter how old you are. You're always our child, and we're not always going to see eye to eye, but the portrayal and to hear certain things that are just bold-faced lies.
Give me an example of some of the lies.
Like when the scene with he and Omari, when he said, she was beating my car windows with the car seat. Let's just cut to, no, I didn't, because I never made it to the car because you tackled me like a linebacker. And my knee was dislocated, and I looked like I had 6 golf balls under the skin in my forearm. And the only reason I went to jail is because I have a mouthpiece, and when the cops came, the cop asked me if I needed medical attention for my injury, and I said, I need you to make a fucking decision as to who's going to jail. And he looked at his partner, and he said, cuff her and take her. And I was released the next day. The DA dropped the case, dropped the charges because there was no damage to his persons, his property. I was the only one all fucked up.
And Fizz didn't press charges?
He wanted to.
Oh, really?
But he couldn't because he'd assaulted me, so things like that. Or like she's, living couch to couch, and like I was living at home with my parents, and what are you talking about? That didn't go bad until the show. So the thing, with him saying he had full custody, that's also not true. I sent Cameron to live with him in June once we started filming because things weren't right at home. So that agreement hadn't been for that long, but...
So that wasn't a court ordered?
No.
So you guys got together?
We have 50-50 legal and physical.
Okay, but what about where Cameron's supposed to live?
Physical, that's the physical. It's 50-50.
But isn't, I honestly don't know how it works. I'm just asking. You could have 50-50 physical, but has to be sort of a home base for somebody? Human beings in general can't live between 2 places usually. They usually are based at one address?
He goes between 2 homes.
Okay. All right.
Mine and his dad's, yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, how we decide to split the days is up to us. It just, according to the court, has to be even. They set a schedule in place for us to abide by, and any given time we can switch that as it best suits our son. Like, you know, he came home to our house one day and was like, oh, all this back and forth is making me tired, you know, because it's a couple days here, a couple days.
Sure.
So we just decided we would do week on, week off. 1 week with Dad, 1 week with me, so he can stabilize, have a schedule, et cetera, et cetera. So in terms of a court order, we've had a court order for for 3 years now. You know, so legally we have had joint custody for 3 years. So that was also not true. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on, but it's like, once we started filming, I was just in a space where I didn't have the energy to continue to fight with him or contend with him. And at one point, we almost didn't make the show because I had expressed that to production. And sure enough, we get, you know, in our first scene, which is the first episode where I visit him in the studio. And what didn't make that cut was he was like, well, you know, you weren't doing everything right during your pregnancy. And I'm like, what? My mom was a Gestapo during my pregnancy. I did everything right. Like, ate right. She's a nutritionist. She's, you know, a physical trainer. So I'm exercising. I'm eating right. I'm consuming all the right things. I'm getting the right amount of rest. So that was a bold-faced lie. I just didn't understand why my name had to be dragged through the mud.
Was there a reason why, you know, because when the show started, you, I guess, didn't know where Fizz lived. Was there a reason why he kept that private?
I don't know.
No idea.
I have no idea.
So when you guys,
I haven't
you guys
known
would just
for a
meet,
very long time.
Okay, so you guys would just meet at some neutral location? And
School, his Cameron schooling. We worked it out so that the week on, week off, it was every Friday. So in other words, he would be with me. You know, I would pick him up. Dad would drop off on a Friday. I would pick up on a Friday, keep until the following Friday, drop him off, and then Dad would pick him up, and then his week began.
Okay, gotcha.
So unless it was a thing where Drew wanted him for something or whatever, other than that, like on the weekend, he would come to my house and like exchange there, but we wouldn't even speak words. Like, he would just say, I'll call you when we're on our way back, and Cameron and I would do our little kissy thing, and then they'd be on their way. So.
Gotcha.